What's up, fellow schizotypals? Welcome back to High Lit, episode 15, week of June the 8th, 7th. We don't do Mondays. This is Detroit, baby. But, anyways, what we got for the show today, we're going to go into how genetics might play a role in how people react to cannabis and how they use it. Then we're also going to be covering general things about the theme of demons in literature. And finally, wrapping up with merchantships. So, that's what we got on the agenda, and let's get into the show. So, first off, let's just go back a little bit, because we got, first off, we got these first episode schizophrenic spectrum disorders. So 24 months of treatment. This is 2021 May, so this is last month. I keep looking over there because that was the old camera placement, but we're just trying out this one. When we get the GoPro back, that'll be over there, and we might have two cameras. Whoa! So because cannabis is associated with unfavorable course of illness and schizophrenia. Although several factors may confound this association. They did a study in 98 patients with first episode disorders, treated with long-acting injectable antipsychotics over 24 months. So with the exception of poor functionality in cannabis users at baseline, no significant differences in these domains were at baseline or month 24. So more cannabis users met our operationally defined relapse criteria compared to non-users, and more frequent cannabis use over the course of treatment, as associated with positive urine toxicology testing, predicted relapse. Our results suggest that cannabis users do not have poor treatment response to non-users in terms of symptom reduction over 24 months of treatment. However, dose-related risk of relapse remains with ongoing cannabis use, possibly by directly reducing the threshold for psychotic breakthrough. So I just wanted to cover this as a, modern schizophrenia trial and like new stuff that's coming up about it, which is here it's saying that it can cause a basically it's like a domino effect where the experience of using cannabis and like the sort of the symptom or like the chemical, the experience that somebody can have from smoking cannabis is more likely to have somebody who is schizophrenic experience a psychotic episode than somebody who doesn't. So it's like with the people who are prone to these things and like that leading to that, it makes sense. It's not a terrifying thing to see in a study, but it is, it's unfortunate that it has that effect on them, but it's not like a terrifying thing. Ew, mouth noises. And here, just to highlight another piece of news, over 2/3, 68%, so close, 68.9, come on, just give it to us, baby. 69% of clinicians believe that cannabis has medicinal uses, and just over a quarter have recommended cannabis to a patient. Clinicians who believe cannabis has medical uses have 6 times the odds of recommending cannabis to patients. Beliefs about conditions for medical cannabis did not necessarily align with current scientific evidence. Nearly 2/3 of clinicians surveyed incorrectly reported the legal state of cannabis in their state. We've covered similar things before, but just to this is a April 26, 2021, so that's an update on what's going on with that. But what we wanted to get on in today is this study here. And an argument that I want to make perfectly clear is that it is not clear that cannabis is correlated to causing mental illness or permanent cognitive damage. While this is a matter of belief, there are strong foundations on which to make the case that it is mental illness, risk-taking behavior, and relative cognitive inability which are likely to cause an individual to use cannabis, not cannabis which causes these things. Additionally, there are genetic variants which make one more likely to experience psychosis as a result of using cannabis. And today we're going to be making this argument through tracing phenotypic expression. So here we have a genome-wide association study implicates chRNA2 in cannabis use disorder. And what we found in this is that the gene variant that they're talking about, I'm just going to be referring to as the gene variant or gene, just for the case of just for simplicity. But it's RS56372821 is the one that is particularly important in today's discussion. So the ISAC, this is a Danish team. It's a lot of it's done by ISAC, who I'll be showing a video of theirs later in the video. But they gathered sample information from 79,492 individuals, among which a majority of 54,243. So let's just get this. Yeah, so with at least one of 6 mental disorders: schizophrenia, bipolar, major depressive disorder, ADHD, anorexia, and autism spectrum disorder, and 25,243 individuals not having any of the 6 psychiatric disorders. The eye-psych sample was selected from both birth cohort, kind of yada yada. But, further background information. Let's just, when tracing the polygenic risk scores of subjects, they found that the gene was correlated to cannabis abuse disorder, but not correlated to any of these mental disorders that they were controlling for. And there's a significant association with schizophrenia and cannabis use. However, the theory that they have stated that makes sense to me is that this is caused by a minority of schizophrenics who heavily use cannabis. And in theory, a minority of schizophrenics using a high volume of cannabis due to cannabis abuse disorder can sway the data point of the group in general. And I'm pretty sure that schizophrenia is also considered like a cluster of disorders, more like bipolar is. Where it's understood as like a variety of disabilities rather than just one clear-cut condition. So then you're going to obviously have people who react in varying ways to substances. And so let me just find another quote from the study. So they found a nominal significant association of the variant with schizophrenia when including individuals with comorbid CUD and controls, while after exclusion of individuals with CUD, the association signal disappeared. To evaluate the impact of CUD comorbidity on the odds ratio of this gene in schizophrenia, null distribution for the odds ratio was generated by doing a bunch of genetic research, which is a little bit beyond me, but 10,000 permutations randomly removing 556 and 101 individuals among the cases and controls, respectively. The observed odds ratio for the gene when excluding individuals with comorbid cannabis abuse disorder was 0.97 and differed significantly from random removal of the same number of cases and controls. Thus, the permutation test supports the hypothesis that the subgroup diagnosed with CUD amongst schizophrenia drives the nominal association observed for RS56, the gene, in the eye-psych schizophrenia samples. So, basically, when you control for CUD, this gene is not correlated to schizophrenia, but it is correlated to cannabis abuse disorder. So schizophrenics with cannabis abuse disorder kind of hold this gene to look associated with schizophrenia, but it's more likely that because schizophrenics are a little more likely to have cannabis abuse disorder, they're presenting a false positive because they have this gene, which causes, so it's like, okay, the clearest way to put it is that Gene A influences cannabis abuse disorder. Schizophrenics are more likely to have cannabis abuse disorder, which means that a lot of schizophrenics carry gene A. But not everybody who carries gene A is predisposed to schizophrenia. So, the gene's not associated with schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is just associated with cannabis abuse disorder, and therefore the gene. Like, that's what I'm saying. Again, I'm not a medical professional, but that's what I'm getting from interpreting what is in front of me that I have in front of you. So additionally, when work done by another person resulted in 3D maps of chromosome contacts when preserved with S&Ps, revealed interaction between the regulatory region of ChRNA2 and the same chromosome that this study focuses on, so chromosome 8, which is the gene variant. ChRNA2 is a gene which encodes a receptor subunit which has been linked to substance abuse and nicotine dependence. However, at the time of the study, no genome-wide significant findings have connected it to any substance abuse or psychiatric disorder besides the recent by Wan et al. Their findings applied a map of credible genetic data from schizophrenics and found regular interaction of the genome-wide significant risk locus on chromosome 8 with the regulatory region of ChRNA2. So this ChRNA2 is a gene. And if so it's like the idea is that this genetic variant is related to the expression of this gene, which is used to encode, the certain reactions in the brain. And it's been found to be related to nicotine dependence and addiction and things like that already separately from cannabis. But it's now showing that perhaps cannabis abuse disorder is also related to a malfunctioning relationship to this gene, or the production and regulation of this gene. So, in the analysis of over 1.2 million people, the cannabis abuse risk locus was significantly associated with smoking initiation, increasing risk for younger age at smoking initiation, and continuation of smoking, but also associated with the decreasing number of cigarettes smoked per day. And I mean, I can kind of say that myself. Like, I just smoke a mixie of them, and it makes me, like, I don't smoke cigarettes. So I'd say, like, yeah, when I was doing construction, I was just smoking Newports. Like, yeah, that was definitely a much more, smoke heavy sort of deal. But nowadays, not so much. And then also at schizophrenic patients smoke at a rate between 60 and 90%. So similar to those with cannabis abuse disorder. Among those with cannabis abuse disorder who did and didn't smoke tobacco, the association with the genes held true. This was found by comparing them with the schizophrenic samples. So to break it down, this gene was found to be associated with cannabis abuse no matter if they smoked tobacco or not, even though the same gene was associated with smoking initiation and smoking at a younger age. Essentially, the gene is associated with what we would understand as risky or unideal behavior. Those with this gene variant are more likely to abuse cannabis and at least try smoking. This is not true of all who partake in cannabis. This is a particular phenotype's reaction to cannabis. This phenotype also happens to have a higher association with smoking. The gene also found that at the polygenic level, increased load variance associated with measures of decreased cognitive performance was associated with CUD. This suggests an underlying genetic component caused by observations of decreased educational performance being related to cannabis use in numerous epidemiological studies. Fuck that word. The direction of causation is unclear, and it is unknown if the relationship is caused by cannabis use and subsequent disengagement from education, or whether to what extent the two share overlapping genetic factors. My argument, away from this work, is that cannabis does not cause psychiatric disorders or mental decline, but that poor life plotting, such as dropping out of school, leads one to certain environments in which one is more likely to smoke cannabis, and that those with certain psychiatric disorders are more likely to use all substances, including cannabis. This would explain the correlation between the groups and explain the common criticism that cannabis causes schizophrenia in otherwise healthy people. Remember that genotypes can be tested for in spit and blood. Considering this gene has been found to be correlated with cannabis abuse disorder, and another was found to be correlated to experiencing psychosis from cannabis, it seems much more likely that cannabis is not an inherently degenerative substance, but that certain genotypes of bodily chemistry does not react positively to the substance. This is the same reason why some people can't have peanuts, but we don't consider peanuts a potentially dangerous substance which should be controlled federally. So, we're going to get into another research. We're going to get into more research, and we're going to get into other studies here soon. But they're also not, they might not really be that important. But perhaps in the future we will find something that predicts psychotic reactions to cannabis and having a certain kind of genetic variant and, having that sort of reaction. And that'd be great. But at least right now, it looks like this has strong potential to predict cannabis abuse disorder because it looks like it has a certain relationship to the regulation of brain chemistry. So I would say, like, this is highly worth reviewing. And the reason why I would bring it up like this is, like, I don't really think genetics are... I'm not really excited to discuss them. They're not really a favorite subject of mine. But at the same time, it's like, if you could predict you having an issue with something, why would you not test for that? It just seems so much like... It seems so... good. It seems like such a good thing to do. Because if you're prone to having like bad reactions to something, you just don't do it. If you have a peanut allergy, don't eat peanuts, I think it's as simple as that. And like when you're looking at it in those sorts of things, and if you can have that sort of confidence in it, I think that it would be much better for the overall acceptance and normalizations of a healthy environment with cannabis. Alright, god damn it. Give me a second. But also, so they have graphs and stuff, but I'm going to let the team in the video go through that. But, so, this study was the first to report a risk locus for diagnosed cannabis abuse disorder, which was replicated in an independent cohort. The locus is on chromosome 8, index variant RS5637282, and has a odds ratio of 0.73 of positive association with cannabis abuse disorder in line with other complex disorders. It was also found to not be confounded by presence of psychiatric disorders. Even including schizophrenics, the gene showed a significant association with cannabis abuse disorder. In the original text, this supports the proposed hypothesis that genome-wide significant symbols observed for cannabis abuse disorder risk locus in schizophrenia could be driven by a subgroup of schizophrenic cases having cannabis abuse disorder. Out of all the other disorders, ADHD and depressive symptoms were associated with increased risk for cannabis abuse. Previous findings have already found overlap between cannabis abuse and depressive symptoms. ADHD risk variants being associated with cannabis abuse also show potential that ADHD and cannabis abuse share genetic risk components. The ties with schizophrenia may be similar. The study admits it cannot rule out genetic variants with several effects, or schizophrenic cases are influenced by CUD. So, cool. And I'm just going to keep going through what I have. I obviously have something written on this stuff, but... So, finally, leaving off the study's conception of chRNA2, let's read this together. chRNA2. What is the sentence that it starts with? Encodes. So chRNA2 encodes the neuronal acetylcholine receptor NACHR alpha 2 subunit, and there is no reported functional link between cannabis use and alpha 2 subunit containing NACHRs. We hypothesized 3 potential ways of the involvement of chRNA2 and CUD. Substances in cannabis might interact directly with the alpha 2 subunit containing those NACHRs, as studies have found cannabinol, a non-psychoactive component of cannabis, to inhibit the alpha 7s containing NACHRs. 2, cannabis could indirectly affect the alpha 2 subunit containing NACHRs. After binding of an antagonist, the NACHRs respond by opening of an ion-conducting channel across the plasma membrane. This causes the depolarization of the membrane and can result in presynaptic neurotransmitters release, including dopamine. Since the psychoactive active compound of cannabis, THC, has found to affect the release of acetylcholine in various brain regions, it could be speculated that through alpha 2 subunit containing NACHRs could affect dopamine release, a known neurotransmitter involved in addiction. 3, there could be a strong biological link between expression of chRNA2 and the CNR1 receptor gene. This hypothesis is based on evaluation of gene expression correlated from genome-wide microarray gene expression profiles. We found that all the genes evaluated, CNR1 demonstrated the strongest negative correlation with chRNA2 expression. The signal was driven by opposite expression patterns in a large number of brain tissue in cerebellum, where CNR1 has a relatively high expression in the cerebral cortex, and chRNA2 had a relatively low expression, and the opposite was observed for cerebral nuclei. This suggests the existence of a currently uncharacterized biological interaction between the endocannabinoid system and alpha 2 subunit containing NACHRs, by which the identified risk locus, which associated with decreased chRNA2 expression, could be related to increased CNR1 expression. Whew! Okay, so we went through that one. And so the team behind this research is focused on psychiatric disorders, so their angle in studying the disorder is informed by their previous work. And rather than treating cannabis and addiction as isolated events, they approach with a more holistic understanding of psychology and what goes on in people's lives. And I think that their working theory here is fantastic and like very interesting and fascinating because, I mean, looking at the regulation of genes and like their relationship with dopamine and looking at addiction as a function of that, where it's just like your brain simply doesn't respond to chemicals in the proper fashion, being able to correct for that could actually like really change people's lives rather than just telling them like, you know, pray it away or just like get better, you know. Actually trying to like do like the genetic work to like trace down like these demons that are like, you know, that really like ruin people's lives, I think is like putting in the real work. So let's welcome the team. They have a wonderful little display. It's over here on Dennis Lawlech's channel, and it's let's see what clips do we want most. So let's just like check in with 310. 330.
It was to identify common risk variants associated with cannabis use disorder being based on genotyped individuals in the eyesight cohort. And eyesight is actually short for the Lundbeck Foundation Initiative for Integrative Psychiatric Research.
So this is who they are.
And what eyesight has done is that we have established a nationwide population-based course. We use the Recopili pipeline. So first we did the.
So this is how the research
we filled it out, SNPs and individuals with low call rates. We did a principal component analysis in order to remove genetic outliers, and non-genotype markers were imputed using 1,000 genome phase 3. And then for the association analysis, we did a logistic regression where we corrected for the psychiatric disorders, which I just mentioned, and also the significant principal component from the PCA analysis. And here you can see the Manhattan plot with the results from our GWAS of cannabis use disorder. So you can see that we were able to identify one very strongly genome-wide significantly associated locus on chromosome 8. And we were, of course, quite happy when we saw this very strong association. And furthermore, we tended to replicate our finding, our genome-wide significant locus, in an independent cohort from Decode Genetics.
Cool. So, serious genetic research. They found this risk locus, and then they were able to do replication in an independent cohort, which makes this seem like pretty. This is the reason why I'm going so far into this one, and I will be kind of not going too far into another one, is that this one seems much more solid, and we're just going to do another just maybe 90 more of this.
Because we know that cannabis use disorder has a prevalence of around 30.
So this is just the graph of so this is the, likely, it's associated with having cannabis abuse disorder, not. So this is autism, or so this is without ADHD is associated with not having cannabis abuse disorder. So if you don't have ADD, you're less likely to have it. If you don't have autism, you're more likely to have it. If you don't have bipolar, you're more likely to have it. If you, but it's depressive symptoms, ADHD, and I believe it was schizophrenia.
To 16% among schizophrenia.
Seems like pretty central.
So in order to evaluate this hypothesis further, we did we tested.
And this is what I was explaining with how they controlled for the schizophrenics. Again, watch this video if you want to have it explained by them. They are the team who did it. They do have a little bit of an accent, but wonderful work. Very much very understandable people. Would highly recommend the video. Obviously, going to be in the description. Please check it out.
Two subunit containing nicotine receptors.
And this is
because cannabidiol and non.
So I'll just let them.
This also supports that what we are actually seeing here is not.
I'm also pretty sure that per dag means per day. But I'll just let them.
So how could it actually be that CHRNA2 could be related to cannabis use disorder? So a hypothesis could be that cannabis might interact directly with the alpha-2 subunit containing nicotine receptors. And this is because cannabidiol, a non-psychoactive component of cannabis, has been found to inhibit the alpha-7 containing nicotine receptors. And therefore, it could be speculated that the alpha-2 containing nicotine receptors could be affected in the same way. And it might also be hypothesized that cannabis could interact indirectly with the alpha-2 subunit containing nicotine receptors. And this is because that after binding of an agonist, for instance, acetylcholine, the nicotine receptors respond by opening an ion-conducting channel across the plasma membrane. And this causes depolarization of the membrane, and it can result in presynaptic neurotransmitter release, including dopamine, which is a known neurotransmitter involved in addiction. And it has actually been found that the psychoactive component of cannabis, THC, it increases the release of acetylcholine in various brain regions. And it could be speculated that this, through the alpha-2 subunit containing nicotine receptors, could affect dopamine release. And then finally, there could be a direct biological link between the expression of CHRNA2 and the...
All right, love you guys. I think that one is a little bit beyond us. That looks kind of complicated, at least for right now. Again, check out their video. fantastic. And I think that this is the final part. I wanted to let them play out. But that was the theory that they have of why it might be related to that. Oh, lovely Detroit bird call. But yeah, so again, just like really good work. We're also going to be going through the 8KT1 gene, which is similar to this, and that's the one that predicts psychosis, but it just doesn't seem like it. So it's like there were a couple of 2016, 2012, 2019. There's like a couple of studies that were published on that gene, and it doesn't really seem to be as significant as we thought it would be. But anyways,
found that the polygenic risk score for 8 phenotypes were significantly associated with cannabis use disorder. So first we found that increased polygenic risk scores for schizophrenia, ADHD, and depressive symptoms, as well as lifetime smoking, increased the risk of cannabis use disorder. And then we also found that increased load of variants associated with performing well in the school, increased educational attainment or college completion, and also human intelligence were associated with a decreased use of or decreased risk of cannabis use disorder. And this is actually illustrated in these quintile plots of the odds ratio for cannabis use disorder.
So that was again, that's the team. You can get more information here, but so that's the CNR1 gene variant type and the risk locus on chromosome 8. Again, it's the gene variant that controls that's very heavily associated with cannabis abuse disorder. So I think that we need to review that and look into that further before we talk about potential for abuse and potential for misusing the substance, because there might be a genetic predisposition for that occurring. Huge shout out to iPsych as always. It's excellent to see people doing the real clinical work. So back on to just to wrap this up. So now to build the argument further out, the ATK1 gene was found to mediate the response of young people to smoking cannabis in 2016. The gene was correlated to whether or not they experienced psychotic effects from smoking cannabis on otherwise healthy individuals, showing that the genetic correlation held true even without the presence of mental illness. And so that's this one. And then it was also discussed in 2016 again, and also 2012. So, there is a body of research. However, there is a 2020 update on that, which is kind of going to be what we're focusing on, considering that's the most recent thing. And that did not find much of a correlation between the genetic variants and cannabis psychotic symptoms from smoking cannabis. So, indeed, it was the first study to investigate the role of FAAH genotype in relation to psychotic experiences. Previous evidence have suggested a possible role. Patients suffering from all stages of psychotic disorders have increased plasma and cerebrospinal fluid levels of anandamide, independent of antipsychotic treatment and current cannabis use. So, also, just why did we spend an episode on that? Patients suffering from all stages of psychotic disorders have increased plasma and cerebrospinal fluid levels of anandamide, independent of antipsychotic treatment and current cannabis use. So this is psychosis, remember. However, previous population and postmortem research on the FAAH genotype, where the A allele leads to a 30% reduction in the functioning of the enzymes, have not shown any association with schizophrenia. We did not find evidence that this was associated with either measure. Future research with case and control study in cannabis use is warranted because it's based on research that suggests that anandamide is also downregulated in chronic cannabis users. We did not have evidence for the functional consequence of FAAH or the other SNPs. This is important because there may be neurobiological variation related to having an FEP or a regular cannabis use, which may modulate anandamide levels. Indeed, future studies should aim to externally validate the consequence of the SNPs analyzed. More work is to investigate the role of the system in schizophrenia and cannabis-induced experiences. As previous research have shown, it is involved. This gene variant, FAAH, is involved in behavioral manifestation of cannabis addictions. In these times of changing cannabis legislation, research highlighting the biological effects is greatly needed in the face of concern about negative consequences of cannabis use. So although in the present study we concentrated on these three S&Ps that have previously been highlighted in research on putative biological mechanisms associating cannabis and psychosis, although in the present study we concentrated on three S&Ps that had previously been highlighted in research on the putative biological mechanisms associated with cannabis and psychosis, data that arises from a genome-wide association study should guide future research. The fact that the S&Ps investigated in this analysis have not been investigated and replicated as causal variants in schizophrenia limits the interpretation of these findings, particularly the expression of the neutral acetylcholine receptor alpha 2 subunit CHNRA2 was found to be significant in the GWAS of cannabis use disorder and the largest schizophrenia GWAS. Additionally, there may be a strong biological link between the expression of CHRNA2 and the gene that encodes the cannabinoid receptor type 1, CNR1, which is based on the assessment of neuromatically precise genome-wide maps of gene expression correlations. So that kind of there are a lot of more genetic questions that might be relevant to like negative reactions to cannabis, but it's hard to do. This study assigned baseline differences in age, gender, ethnicity, and cannabis use variables, but other potential confounders, such as the type of cannabis used, grams a day, and whether it was used with tobacco, were not assessed. So whether or not the ATK1 gene is relevant, there are interesting genetic relationships to cannabis's effect on individuals. While the argument that cannabis causes psychosis and violence is sort of hackneyed, it may be associated with a lower quality of life and low ambition, but I would argue it's more that those genotypes that are associated with cannabis use, then cannabis use is related to those effects. So when you have somebody who is not, like I would say like lower achievement and less intelligent people are more likely to smoke cannabis. It's not the cannabis that made them that way. And unfortunately, there's nothing, like, I don't mean that in any judgmental way. I just mean, like, I think that there is a statistical significance that, like, if somebody's just, like, living in, like, a flop house, they're probably going to be smoking pot. So, like peanuts, it causes radical effects in some people. We're uncertain why or who is at risk, but genetic variants show promise as an explanation to why it has such a negative effect on a minority of people. Again, according to the studies, only 1% of cannabis smokers experience psychotic effects. So that's only 1%. That's 1 in 100. By and large, cannabis appears to be harmless or less harmful than Adderall and Xanax. I believe it has a place as an alternative pharmacological agent. So, by and large, cannabis appears to be harmless or less harmful than Adderall and Xanax. I believe it has a place as an alternative pharmacological agent. Genetic risk factor seems to show that there are possible negative outcomes for cannabis use, and I suggest we review them to better arm those people against triggers which threaten their health. Otherwise, until then, keep an open mind about cannabis use and question what the real relationship between it and negative outcomes are. Does cannabis ruin everyone's life, or does everyone going through it really just want to light up a blunt and say fuck it? So, that's just an introduction to the genetic question in relation to cannabis. And that's 34 minutes, basically. So, I'm just kind of wrapping up there. We could go further down this rabbit hole, but I just wanted to basically introduce and, like, show that there's at least a heavy association between cannabis abuse and genetics. So there's, like, if people abuse it, it's very likely that they have a genetic variant that, like, is predisposed to that behavior. So I think that's, like, something to keep in mind. And also, like, so it's like if you're somebody who thinks that pots should be legal, but it's, like, never gone good for you in your life, like, consider that as an option for being like, hey, why doesn't this seem right for me? Why isn't this working out for me? Why can't I put this into my life in a healthy way? Maybe it's not you, dude. Maybe it is just literally, health. Maybe it's a health issue. Anyways, on to demons. Well, on to Winter Evening. So, this is by Pushkin. The storm wind covers the sky, whirling the fleecy snowdrifts. Now it howls like a wolf. Now it is crying like a lost child. Now the rustling of the decayed thatch on our tumble-down roof. Now like a delayed traveler knocking on our window pane. Our wretched little cottage is gloomy and dark. Why do you sit all silent, hugging the window, old Gran? Has the howling of the storm wearied you at last, dear friend? Or are you dozing fitfully under the spinning wheels humming? Let us drink, dearest friend, to my poor wasted youth. Let us drink from grief. Where's the glass? Our heart at least will be lightened. Sing me a song of how the blue tit quietly lives across the sea. Sing me a song of how the young girl went to fetch water in the morning. The storm wind covers the sky, whirling the fleecy snowdrifts. Now it howls like a wolf. Now it is crying like a lost child. Let us drink, dearest friend, to my poor wasted youth. Let us drink from grief. Where's the glass? Our heart at least will be lightened. Pushkin. And then we're going to follow that up with the demon. In days when all earthly impressions were utter novelty for me, and looks of maids and noise of groves and nightingales plea, when highly elevated senses, the love, the liberty, the pride and arts, fancies, such strongly aggravated blood, having filled time of bliss and hopes, with sudden bitterness of pine, some genius of the evil scopes began invade a realm of mine. Our meetings were all sad and secret, dismal his smile and ever-charming look, his speeches endless, evil ringlet, poured poison in my soul's brook. He's a good poet. He's a good poet. I don't know. Folk tales. These are essentially our folk tales. That's what we're doing. These are the highlight folk tales. So I expect you to have these memorized by next Tuesday. There will be a test. It's all going on the exam. In case you're wondering, there is an exam. You have to take it. But now the transition to your boy. I also don't need the headphones on. Cool. But now, so this is Demons by Dostoevsky. Oh my god. 1 second. I'll be right back. You know, there's just one person take care of the dog when it's whining. That's how that one works, but that's just how life goes. Anyways, what we were getting into, I like tea, he said, at night a lot. I walk and drink till dawn. Tea at night is awkward abroad. You go to bed at dawn? Always, a long time. I eat little, mainly tea. Leptune is coming, but impatient. Cunning, but impatient. Why blathering? I'm only looking for the reasons why people don't dare to kill themselves, that's all. And it makes no difference. The foremost things, there are two sorts. Those who kill themselves from great sorrow or anger, or the crazy ones, or whatever. They do it suddenly. They think little about pain and do it suddenly. But the ones who do it judiciously, they think a lot. And there are there any who do it judiciously? Very many. If it wasn't for prejudice, there'd be more. Very many. Everybody. Really? Everybody. Every foremost scientist, a foremost doctor, all of them will be very afraid. They all know it won't be painful, but they'll all be very afraid it will be. Each man cannot judge except by himself. There will be entire freedom when it makes no difference whether one lives or does not live. That is the goal to everything. The goal? But then perhaps no one even want to live. Perhaps no one will even want to live. No one, he said resolutely. Man is afraid of death because he loves life. That is base. That is the whole deceit. Life is pain, life is fear, and man is unhappy. Now all is pain and fear. Now man loves life because he loves pain and fear. That's how they made it. Life now is given in exchange for pain and fear, and that is the whole deceit. Man now is not yet the right man. There will be a new man, happy and proud. He for whom it will make no difference whether he lives or does not live, he will be the new man. He who overcomes pain and fear himself will become God, will be God, and this God will not be. Man is now not yet the right man, and there will be a new man, happy and proud. He from whom it makes no difference whether he lives or does not live, he will be the new man. He who overcomes pain and fear will himself be God, and this God will not be. So this God exists in your opinion. He does and he doesn't. There's no pain in the stone, but there is pain in the fear of the stone. God is the pain of the fear of death. He who overcomes pain and fear will himself become God. Then there will be a new life, a new man, everything new. Then history will be divided into two parts. From the gorilla to the destruction of God, and from the destruction of God to the gorilla? To the physical changing of the earth and man. Man will be God and will change physically. And the world will change, and deeds will change, and thoughts and all feeling. What do you think? Will man then change physically? It makes no difference whether one lives or does not live. If it makes no difference whether one lives or does not live, then everyone will kill himself, and perhaps that will be the change. It makes no difference. They will kill the deceit. Whoever wants the main freedom must dare to kill himself. He who dares to kill himself knows the secret of the deceit. There is no future freedom. Here is everything, and there is nothing future. He who dares to kill himself is God. Now anyone can make it so that there will be no God, and there can be no anything. But no one has done it yet. Not once. There have been millions of suicides. But all not for that. All in fear, and not for that. Not to kill fear. He who kills himself only to kill fear will at once become God. I don't know how it is with others, and my feeling is that I cannot be like any other. Any other thinks, and then at once thinks something else. I cannot think something else. I think one thing all my life. Yeah. Fuck, dude. It does, like, literally, it's like when you become a student, everything feels like it was made yesterday. You know, it's like the further that you understand history, the closer and closer it feels, and like I don't know. It doesn't really even feel like historical literature. I understand it's not even that old, but like still, you know. This whole like negation of life, this whole like sort of hatred, and like, you know, just sort of lifestyle that comes out of this like I don't know. I'm only looking for the reason why people don't dare to kill themselves, that's all. And it makes no difference. Life is pain, life is fear, and man is unhappy. Now all is pain and fear. Now man loves life because he loves pain and fear. That's how they made it. Life now is given in exchange for pain and fear, and that is the whole deceit. Man now is not yet the right man. There will be a new man, happy and proud. He for whom it will make no difference whether he lives or does not live. He will be the new man. He who overcomes pain and fear will himself be God, and this God will not be. I mean, that just seems like pretty much a sum up of Nietzsche. You know, that's like the Nietzschean, like, free spirit, all that bullshit. But, you know, it's like the idea of the replacing what we have now with, like, the bright future of perfection and utopia and true equality and good morals. And, like, really when the good people, you know, get to be out. Really when the good people get a chance to run it all, you know. That change in history, you know. That time we killed God. That time we killed social order and just replaced history. If it makes no difference whether one lives or does not live, then everyone will kill himself, and that perhaps will be the change. He who dares to kill himself must know the secret of the deceit, to kill fear itself, so that he may become God. So, those are the that's the lit section that we got. I don't really have an explanation for. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that's pretty straightforward. I feel like we've all kind of heard how that shit goes on. But also the reason why I chose demons is because the they have upon my life the tracks have vanished. We've lost our way. What shall we do? It must be a demon leading us this way and that around the field. How many are there? Where have they flown to? Why do they sing so plaintively? Are they burying some household goblin? Is it some witch's wedding day? And so that's Pushkin's Demons. So I found The Demon, couldn't find Demons, but I'll track that one down too. Probably should just fucking do that. But Alexander Pushkin, do they have it? See, this is what I mean. They don't got demons. Try to find it, but that's the epitaph or the entry poem to Dostoevsky. So that's tying in all of these things together and just putting them in that context. But I do think that there is something about this rejection of life and this rejection of the way things are and this hatred of everything. And it's like, well, then yeah, just fucking do it, dude. Like, it's like, if you hate life so much, then why don't you truly reject it? Which isn't to support this or to say that it's the right thing to do. Also, so this is the idiot, but that's the Pushkin poem, and this is the book. And so it's just like that sort of. Obviously, it's good enough to keep some people alive, and obviously, some people see value in preserving things and like caring about society. So just if you really think that there is nothing to it, then I don't know. I feel like that is a dialogue that we have today. That's also, like it's from Dostoevsky, but it reads as something modern and it reads as a current conversation or current argument. Anyways, let's bring it back. Let's go to the boys. Merchant ships. This is back 2010. Back when I felt things. It's another Jack band. Deadbeat kids living dead in lives. Yeah. I'm sick of watching it all turn out. guys are the fucking best, man. Are you so happy we took the fan to fucking be out here, man? This shit's the fucking... I told you, bro. I told you. You sneak in that fucking tall boy. Hell yeah, bro. Yeah. Hydrate. Make sure to hydrate, boys. The coffee's gone. Fuck. We only have water. Alright, listen. Well, no, we're fine. I'll keep hanging out. We're gonna keep hanging out. This is fun. Ugh. Sorry, I can't stop cringe singing. It's just the song of my people.
We're gonna try to play a song called Birthday. We've been on tour for 9 days. And all 9 days we said we were gonna play it to practice it. But we haven't. So we're gonna try it. Okay, we have 4 more. We're gonna fuck this up. Here we go.
good drummer. He's a good fucking drummer. Fuck yeah, boys. You. That room is just, it smells like sweat. It smells like sweat in here because of them. Jesus.
This song's for our friend John Barbara here. Thanks a lot to everyone who stuck around tonight. It's probably the latest show we've played yet. Hopefully one day we'll be back in Rhode Island. We'll be in a tour bus by then, don't worry.
Ah, fuck. And that was the merchant ship set. Thank you for tuning in for that, and thanks for tuning in for this episode. That was schizophrenia, or not schizophrenia. That was well, yeah, there was relevant studies on that, and general just update on research. There was the genotype that predicts abuse, potential genotype that predicts psychosis, but less likely to be really important. Demon poetry, Pushkin, Demons by Dostoevsky, and merchant ships. Thanks for hanging out with me in 2010 emo. That was fucking great. Thanks for going to Imperial Russia with me, and thanks for fucking trying to figure out why weed works the way it does. We'll be back tomorrow, talking about MDMA therapy. So get ready for that. And that's it. Yeah, I was on the wrong account, so it was showing just rando fucking recommendations. So we'll fix it in post. But anyways, have a great day. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Stay awesome. Stay awesome. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And have a good rest of your day. If there's a rest of your day. If this uploads before like midnight. See ya.